Hello, I'm journalist Jeff Smith here at Ono Academic College to talk about diversity and multiculturalism among the students here. With me now is Professor Tamar Hostovsky-Brandis. In your mind, what makes Ono really a special place to come and learn? What makes this a really wonderful place to pursue an education?
Well, first and foremost, I think the most important thing, the most unique thing is the composition of our student body. Our students really come from all sectors of Israeli society. We have Jewish students, we have Arab students, we have ultra-Orthodox students, we have a lot of first-generation higher education students, which I think is a very important contribution, of course, for the student, for themselves, but also to the student body itself. And I think that in terms of the classroom and the diversity of the classroom, our Ono Academic College is truly unique.
What are the challenges and also the opportunities of having such a diverse student body?
Well, the challenges are obviously gaps in knowledge, prior knowledge, gaps in life experiences, different life experiences, diversities in life experiences, that would be more accurate. But for me, these are first and foremost opportunities and strengths. For me, the classroom, my classroom, is a unique opportunity to talk about these very contentious topics. You know, equality. What does equality mean in a Jewish and democratic state? To talk about international law. You know, to talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in an atmosphere that many of the students don't have the possibility to experience anywhere else. I feel that today the classroom is more important than ever. If we keep hearing about, the polarizing effect of social networks, then the classroom is really a unique place, a unique space, which is a safe space in which students can engage in a respectful conversation about these very contentious, difficult topics.
Why is it important for you to encourage those difficult conversations, those controversial topics in the classroom, and not to avoid them?
Well, first, it's impossible. It's impossible with the topics. I mean, constitutional law is about equality, and it is about freedom of expression and the limits of freedom of expression. It is about the definition of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, and what does this definition mean? And it is, and I think it's very important nowadays, about democracy. What is democracy? What are the threats to democracy? How do we react to the threats of democracy? This is the material. And I think that we have to remember that the Israeli public education system, the school education system, is separate. Each group studies in its own school, and this is the first opportunity for them to hear other perspectives. Now, this is what Israeli society is. This is what democracy is about. This is, in my perspective, in my perception, this is a microcosmos, of the whole democratic experiment. So yes, there are gaps you need to overcome, but they are nothing compared to the opportunity that this kind of classroom provides.
Bring me into your classroom, if you could. I mean, what is that conversation like when you have such a diverse student body with different backgrounds, different religious beliefs, different political beliefs?
I think it's surprising how civilized it is. There's something in the personal encounter, in the listening to this personal story or personal life experience of the student that is sitting next to me that has a taming effect. It doesn't necessarily mean that students change their political opinions, and it's not my goal at all, to influence the students' political opinions. But it does mean that if students come in with this very, these very strong statements, for example, about Israel being a Jewish state and what this implies, in many respects, then once they hear the personal experience, life experience of the Arab students that is sitting next to them, it doesn't mean that they would necessarily change their political opinion, but I do feel that, that the discussion is tamed down, that it's not as polarizing, as the kind of discussion that takes place in the media, in the political discourse, in the social networks, or outside of the classroom.
In person, I mean, these discussions are heated, certainly passionate, but also respectful.
I think a lot of the work we do in class about being able to put our emotions and our feelings aside, or at least not focus exclusively on how we feel about things, and try to think about them, to analyze them, to understand the difference between the legal perspective and the political perspective. And in many situations, there is a difference, to be able to kind of take the problem apart and see different facets, different aspects of an issue, not just my perspective, which is, strongly driven by how I feel about things. And I like to think, I believe, that this is important for the students beyond, their knowledge of constitutional law and the case law of the Israeli Supreme Court. These are tools that they also take, into other classes, into their lives, into their roles as citizens. It's not just about the classroom.
Is there a student's personal journey or success story that holds a special place in your heart about what they learned in your classroom, what they learned here at Ono, and how they carried that forward even into the future? I
have many stories like that. I think the sentence I hear most is, I couldn't imagine, the opportunities I had. I had a student, for example, that opened a center that deals with sexual harassment within the ultra-Orthodox community. We've had students from an Ethiopian origin in my equality class, for example. I teach a class about equality, writing seminars about racial profiling. They didn't know that it has a name. So they've lived through the experience of racial profiling by the police. But once, they get into the academic research of racial profiling, then suddenly they can name their experience. And they can say, well, this is happening in other countries as well. I have a comparative perspective of my experience of what is going on. And it's a real issue, and there's writing about it, and there's interest in it, and I can name it, and I can say what's wrong with it, and I can debate. I have the tools to debate, to put in words, to fight, my experience. I think that's a very empowering experience for students, and we hear it a lot.
And for 6 years in a row now, the lecturers here at Ono Academic College have been awarded the title of Best Lecturers in Israel. That's got to be very meaningful to you.
Well, first, we're very happy, of course, that this is the student experience of our hard work and of our teaching. A lot of our students are first-generation higher education students, and they make a huge leap here. And it's very important for us that the fact that they make this huge leap doesn't mean that we compromise. We don't compromise with respect to academic excellence. We don't compromise with respect to teaching. We don't compromise with respect to requirements. So our students come out with an LLB, and they make this leap here at Ono, which means I think that our contribution, to social mobilization within Israeli society is really unparalleled. I don't think there's any other institution that contributes so much in terms of diversity of the student body, in terms of the size of the student body. I think numbers are also relevant if you want to make a difference. The number is also significant with respect to the change we make within society and how many students are able, to better their position, to better their lives as a result of studying.
Last thing I want to ask, you're teaching your students. What are your students teaching you?
Oh, a lot. So my current research project, which is a huge research project that's been going on for years, I've been working on for years. I've published a few articles in top law reviews, and I'm currently working on additional papers, is a project on solidarity. My whole perspective on how to foster solidarity, how to encourage solidarity in a diverse society, and in a culturally diverse society, in a conflicted society, has been very much influenced by the personal experiences, I hear from my students, by their perspective. So I maybe enriching them with knowledge, but their perspectives enriching me no less, and they're very much tied into and interwoven into the research work and academic work that I do.
Because it's one student that tells a story of so many more. From this one example, we can extrapolate the experiences of many. So tell me the student's story and her journey.
So, for example, I had an ultra-Orthodox student, a mother of 5 children, in her 30s, who came to me to ask for a recommendation for a master's. She wanted to apply for a master's. And what she said is, I never imagined I could be at this point. I thought that I was going to be a teacher because everyone around me, all my friends, went to be teachers within our community. And as I progressed throughout the years, I became more and more interested. And suddenly, she said I could see myself interning in a prestigious, law firm. And she did succeed. She went out to intern in one of the most prestigious, law firms in Israel. And while she was there, she started imagining what else she could do. The scope of her opportunities expanded. And she said, well, I want to apply for a master's. And, she even whispered, I might even want to go for a PhD later. And I said, of course you go for a PhD. You can do it. She said, well, I have kids. It's not too late. And she said, as she decided at some point, that she's going for it, which is something she couldn't have imagined years before that. And this is one story, but I've had numerous students describe the same experience.
Ono certainly prides itself on being an elite research institution. What does that mean in practice? What kind of research is going on here at Ono Academic College, and do you have any personal examples of the work you're doing? I
think it's very important to emphasize that excellence in teaching doesn't come at the expense of excellence in research. So it's very important for us, to be at the front of research, that is the researching academic world. My colleagues publish a lot. I publish a lot, at top law reviews around the world, international law reviews. It's very important for us to be part of the academic conversation that is going on within our respective disciplines, within our respective areas. So I hope that for our students, it is the beginning of a lifelong journey of learning, of wanting to know, of asking questions and wanting to know more and figuring out the world around them. And I also think, of course, that our role is also to provide them with practical tools, tools to integrate into society, tools for social mobilization. Our third role is in terms of influencing Israeli society. As we know, Israeli society, is very polarized. I think there are a lot of issues at stakes in terms of public discourse, in terms of democracy, in terms of equality, in terms of freedom of expression. And I think that we do have an educational role here also, in terms of educating citizens. So yes, we educate students and we give them the tools to be professionals in their respective disciplines. But I also think, at least in the law school, I believe, that we also give them the tools to be more involved, more engaging, more caring citizens of Israel.